All right, so we're fresh off of a Chiefs overtime victory over the Titans. They fought valiantly throughout that game, but fell up just a little bit short after failing to convert a very, very long fourth down. So in this episode, we'll be taking into account all of this week's games and breaking down some of the top early waiver wire candidates for Week 10. These are the players, well, basically they're few and far between, but are the players that we are looking for to potentially be contributors going forward here this season. The well is drying up. That's absolutely for certain here at this waiver wire opportunity, obviously for teams every week. And these are honestly pickups for deeper level teams, 12-plus man formats, guys that have leagues that have obviously deep bench slots. So we're looking for these players to be contributors in that way, but for those of you in 8-man leagues and shorter, you're probably looking at a situation where realistically maybe one of these guys has the potential to offer lineup utility going forward. So keep that stuff in account as we dive into today's episode, but we'll be breaking down all of the ways these players can contribute going forward. All right, so my priority pickup this week is Jeff Wilson Jr., the newly acquired running back of the Miami Dolphins, of course, the longtime villain this season for Elijah Mitchell in San Francisco, but since they traded for Christian McCaffrey, they then had spare bodies to obviously move off of and use as trade assets, and they get some compensation in return for Wilson, who would have been the third-string running back going forward, and frankly has been a little bit more productive than a third-string running back should be. So obviously giving him the opportunity and chance to move on here, and lo and behold, week one with his new team here, obviously running a very similar, if not the same schematic process on the ground as was ran in San Francisco. Of course, the coaching staff, Mike McDaniel translated over, obviously formerly of Kyle Shanahan's staff in San Francisco, but all that stuff is kind of, hearsay at this point. But Jeff came out here and basically proved that he is going to be a very vital portion of this Miami Dolphins run game. And he tied Raheem Mostert for the team lead in rushing attempts, again, in his first game as a Miami Dolphin. So that's a very impressive marker there. He also added 3 receptions and a touchdown catch on the day as well. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to be, I don't want to call this a committee, I'll call it a split backfield. That's what it looks like at this point in time. I don't expect, based on this game, to see one player truly take over the entirety of the lead work in this offense. I don't currently have, I tried looking for it, and usually the charting data I look for comes out on Monday afternoons, but for snap count percentage, I don't have the exact breakdown right now. I tried to skim through Twitter, but didn't see anything posted about that yet, so I'll keep my eye out for that stuff, but Jeff Wilson Jr. certainly looks like, again, my priority pickup for this week, as well as a function of this Miami Dolphins backfield and rushing attack going forward here. Latavius Murray, let's dive back into the well here. We've talked so much Latavius Murray in these pickup videos, but I truly feel like this is a valuable add here. Now, does his stock potentially take a bit of a hit here, and does this have some lesser upside potentially in Week 10 than it did entering into Week 9, even though he's on the bye week? Basically, the analysis and reasoning for that is the team went out at the trade deadline and acquired Chase Edmonds, so potentially a role for him in the pass-catching game, and they went out and showed interest. They went out and got him. Same thing they did with Latavius Murray here, but clearly showing that they want something that he has to provide to this offense that him and Melvin Gordon weren't, and I think that obviously, as I alluded to, is involvement in the receiving game here, but we'll see. And going forward, it's kind of a mystery as to how this backfield will be deployed here coming off of a Week 9 bye, but Latavius was a guy who was very involved in this offense, much, the Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray situation, while their offenses are entirely different, the breakdown of that backfield situation is very similar to what I expect from Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert going forward. So at 31% rostership, he has dropped to 9% of leagues last week, obviously a result of not wanting to stash him through the bye. There's availability here in nearly 70% of formats. Go take advantage of that and potentially get yourself a low-end running back that you could stream in a dire situation. Chuba Hubbard, another player that technically is his team starter now. He's been out the last 2 weeks with a minor ankle sprain, and again, while he has not been on the field, Deontay Foreman has balled out to the last 3 weeks. This week was much so an underwhelming performance as Carolina's offense as a whole basically suffered throughout 4 quarters until the very end when Baker came in and somehow managed to put up 21 points. But overall, this is a player that, again, theoretically on paper, via the depth chart, is this team starter, and going forward could see some involvement in this offense. Now, I do think Deontay Foreman has the edge on the goal line. I think he's the better running back in this situation, but there is some food on the table for Chuba Hubbard here, and definitely some opportunities for him to create some level of fantasy productivity and utility for lineups here. Again, 33% rostership available in 2/3 of leagues. Yahoo Fantasy is where we get these rostership numbers from, because I think they're just more accurate than ESPN's right now, just based on the wide array of different league sizes that ESPN has that kind of dilutes those numbers a little bit. Rachaad White here at 34%, definitely a deeper league pickup here or a handcuff for Leonard Fournette owners. Now, did anything happen to Leonard Fournette? No, or at least not that I'm aware of at this current point in time. But what was really encouraging about Rachaad White, and by no means am I suggesting a backfield takeover here, but I do think this is indicative of what Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, is looking to do here in the future, and the direction this team wants to move towards is Leonard Fournette has not been an efficient running back this year. He has clearly been limited in certain facets of his production, in certain facets of his NFL game this season. And am I saying that he's falling off a cliff? No. But has he been a little bit underwhelming? And, yes, part of it has been offensive line play. But Rachaad White's been a really nice spark plug for this team. And in the snaps that he gets, he's been a productive player. He's a very viable receiving threat. And on third down, Tom Brady trusts him. And he was on the field in their 2-minute crunch drives in a larger portion of plays than I expected. Now, again, that shows the confidence that this coaching staff has in him, and especially Tom as well, to have him on the field for that spurt of time. And yes, Lenny was in and out as well. And again, I'm not suggesting a running back takeover here, but this is a high-level handcuff. If something, of course, were to happen to Leonard Fournette, if you've got a variety of bench space on your roster, go check him out. He's only rostered in 34% of leagues, 66% he'll be available in, again, numbers via Yahoo Fantasy, but there's a lot of upside here for a pretty, widely available player that, again, could be a nice stash for those deeper teams. Kadarius Toney here at 55%. I forgot to correct that. He was dropped in 2% of leagues after having minimal production. Of course, being inactive. This is his first game with the Chiefs, so essentially teams that were impatient and needed to free up some space here went out and took advantage of him. Now, he was a player that had a Week 8 bye week, so we didn't see him on the field in that game. He came out here, he had 2 catches for 12 yards. There's nothing analytically driven or no, production-based arguments being made here. This is simply an explosive, electric playmaker. This sounds really hyperbolic and dumb to say, but I liked what I saw in his 2 catches. He got out in space, caught the football near the line of scrimmage, and was given an opportunity to make a play. And he looked incredibly shifty. Did he make a spectacular play happen? No. But again, it was very limited opportunity, and he's still learning this playbook. He was not on the field for a high percentage of snaps. He's just behind right now. He has to do some catching up here. And again, this is why this is a pickup, and you might see him be dropped in a wide variety of leagues this week after having a small Week 9 performance, because a lot of players just aren't going to want to be patient and sit through this. But this is, to me, a high upside pickup here. It might take, a couple of weeks here for him to get on track and really start producing numbers. Who knows? Maybe he never wiggles his way into the starting lineup this season, but this is a very talented playmaker. They did give up something to get him. There's clearly an end game for this Chiefs roster requiring him. They do have a goal and a vision set for him. And again, he's insanely athletic, extremely explosive, very elusive in space. He was number 1 in juke rate in 2021, his rookie season. So a lot to like here. I'm not going to say he's Tyreek Hill, but there is certainly an element of athleticism and pure lateral movement that Kadarius Toney possesses that I don't really see anyone else on the football field having for Kansas City right now. And that of itself, this caliber of a weapon and what that could represent here, being tied to Patrick Mahomes, is a very, very valuable asset. Treylon Burks, if you're looking for, maybe the opportunity is passing by the wayside here, but an IR stash, Treylon Burks might just be a savvy option to go out and pursue here. Now, I've had him stashed on a lot of teams as an IR player this year, had to drop him in a lot of situations where I'm losing players left and right, but this is a guy that has a lot of upside. If you watched Sunday Night Football, I was extremely shocked to see that Tennessee did not have one wide receiver record a reception. I believe that's a stat I heard at the end of the game. And obviously Malik Willis is not going to contribute insane numbers to their passing attack here, but just A, being a young quarterback, B, being a scrambler, and C, this being a run-first offense. But man, they are desperate for perimeter playmaking. And when this kid comes back, they are going to be all over him. Now, is he going to get 10 targets a game in this level of a heavy passing offense? No. I mean, this is a team that would prefer to, at the end of the day, run the football and run play action pass over the top. That's ultimately what A.J. Brown's role was for this team for the 4 seasons of his rookie contract, or 3 seasons of his rookie contract. I believe this was entering into the final year of that deal. So at the end of the day, is Treylon Burks going to be a high-volume player? No, but there's, again, a lot of upside here for a talented first-round draft pick player and a guy that has just, not played this season. He's been dealing with injury and, again, can come back here and maybe contribute something to teams down the stretch of this season. Terrace Marshall at 5% rostership. Not sure where I got that 15% number from. A guy who was the Panthers' leading receiver this week. Now, is he overtaking DJ Moore? No. However, this is a talented former second-round pick by the Panthers that's been making some plays, that has been getting unique opportunities here. Now, the target numbers have not been crazy. There's really nothing here that suggests that he's going to be a high-volume target magnet, aside from the fact that the last 2 weeks he does have a fairly solid 15 targets, again, over 2 games, so 7.5 targets per game. Nothing crazy there again. But he's been getting a lot of end zone targets, lots of goal line fades, lots of opportunities for 6. This week, he finally cashed in, scored on that fade ball, had that Moss touchdown, if you will, which is a contested jump ball, and got in the end zone. So for a guy that's very talented, again, a former high-round draft investment by this team, as they've traded away guys like Robbie Anderson and started to open up this receiver room, he is getting more opportunities now. He's a talented playmaker. He can work the perimeter. He can line up in the slot. Again, a deeper league format play. I actually had to stream him in one of my deepest leagues. I play a league that has 4 flex positions, so I had to roll Terrace Marshall into lineup, and it ended up working out pretty nicely. But random story there. If you got, again, a super deep bench situation or need to start a lot of players every week, like that situation I just outlined there, a player to look at for some nice upside here as this offense continues to try and find their identity as they progress towards the future. Noah Fant. Let's dive into some tight ends now. So at 10% rostership, Noah Fant had a very solid game this week. Now, had only 6 targets, just 3 receptions, and honestly, his biggest play came at the end of the game. So this is not like you're picking up a must-start tight end, but this is an athletic, high-ceiling tight end too, a player that's very talented, as I said, and his biggest play of the game came down the stretch where Seattle had just gotten scored on by Arizona. They were looking to potentially just wind the clock down, or potentially extend their lead further and give Arizona the ball back with minimal time. And Noah Fant catches one of those routes where it's just kind of a naked route out into the flat, and then Geno Smith hits him, and again, he's athletic as heck, turns that ball upfield and takes down off down the sideline. So ended with 96 receiving yards on just 3 receptions, and then Ken Walker ended up putting him ahead 10 to basically seal the deal for that game. But this has been somewhat like a tight end by committee style approach, so I'll be straight up front with you guys about that. This is not a guy who is playing every single snap or getting 100% of the opportunities at the tight end position on this team. You're going to see Will Dissly out there. You're going to see Colby Parkinson out there. That's just the reality of the situation. But he is the best player at this position on this team, the most talented player. I would argue the most athletic player at this position. So I'll bet on him to be the most fantasy viable of those assets and obviously contribute something going forward here the rest of this season. And then Cade Otton at 11%, 11% rostership. Cade Otton is a player that basically is in a similar boat as what we're seeing from Noah Fant. Now, they're very different players, but you've, of course, got guys like Kyle Rudolph playing a small percentage of the snaps, and you've got Cameron Brate, who returned from injury this week. Cade Otton, though, was the man in the receiving game for this week's action. He had 5 receptions on 6 targets, 68 yards, and the game-winning reception touchdown from TB12. I like this college tape. I like what he brings to the table here. He's got nice size, solid hands, the ability to block, which is important for getting him on the field on 1st and 2nd down. So, and of course, 3rd and short situations as well. And fun fact, so they are missing Gronkowski in Tampa Bay. He was the first player at the tight end position this season to score a receiving touchdown. That is big news and a big deal here for Cade Otton, which potentially going forward could establish some chemistry, some trust with Tom Brady, and potentially start developing into the red zone weapon this team is looking for, and that we hoped Cade could be heading into this season. Next up, our 2 streamer picks of the week at defense. For now, this could change based on in and outs throughout the week, but we've been pretty good with our picks here as of late. We had Minnesota for this past week's games. They did pretty well against Washington. We've had other teams like Miami in the past that have stood up to teams like the Steelers. This week, we've got the Jets at 19% rostership. This week, the Jets have the New England Patriots. That offense is struggling. They had a very easy matchup against the Colts this week. I don't believe in the overall fundamentals of this Pats offense. I see struggles. I see inept offensive line play. I see lacking playmakers in the perimeter. It's Ramondre Stevenson or bust. It's Mac Jones. Can you just not turn the football over? Not that he's turnover prone, because that's not really the nature of his game. This offensive lack of support has kind of forced him into those plays. But at the end of the day, this Jets defense is playing with their hair on fire. Sauce Gardner, man, did he ever take Josh Allen to town at the end of that game there, obviously making some big plays down the stretch. And wow, I could not believe the job that this team did on Josh Allen's Bills in Week 9. You've got a situation where this team, Saleh's got them coached up well. They play with a lot of energy, and they're flying around the football field, getting pressure on the quarterback. Basically, everything is synergizing and clicking for this defense. So take a look at the Jets defense. Again, 19% rostership, so 4 and 5 leagues, basically, they're going to be available and a solid streaming option for this week's matchups. So there you guys have it. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your waiver wire ad questions in the comment section below. We're always open for you guys to ask anything you need help with, and we'll get back to as many of you guys as we possibly can. One more note, we've got the community Discord in the description of today's episode. Go check that out if you want some more fantasy discussion and interaction here. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.